Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something deceptively simple, really. Smells like comfort, lazy mornings, but sometimes, well, surprisingly tricky to get just right.
Absolutely.
We are diving into the world of easy, fluffy, homemade pancakes.
That's right. And for this deep dive, we got a stack of sources, all promising that perfect pancake from scratch.
Yeah, like which ones?
Well, we're looking at recipes like Jennifer Segal's. That one's adapted from the New York Times cookbook. Then there's the super popular one from Inspired Taste by Adam Gallagher.
Oh, I think I know that one.
Yeah, it's everywhere. And the trusted family favorite from Love and Lemons. So a good mix.
Okay, so our mission here is basically to cut through the noise. We're going to unpack these, pull out the key ideas, those simple but like critical secrets.
Universals.
Exactly. The shortcut to mastering really fluffy homemade pancakes, giving you all the key insights without reading, well, everything yourself.
And the very first thing these sources all seem to agree on, like loud and clear.
Yeah.
Homemade, from scratch pancakes. Way better than any box mix.
And just as easy, apparently.
Genuinely just as easy. That's the consistent message.
Seriously. And the real appeal, highlighted everywhere, is using basic pantry stuff you likely already have.
Right. Flour, sugar, eggs, milk, butter. No special trips needed, usually.
Yeah.
And the payoff, if you follow a few key steps we found across these recipes, is that perfect pancake, right? Light, tender inside.
Those golden, maybe slightly crispy edges.
Exactly. Delicious result.
All right, let's break down the core building blocks then. Every single source uses a similar cast of characters. All-purpose flour, sugar, salt, large eggs, milk, melted butter. Pretty standard.
Very standard. But our deep dive showed that how you handle them and why they're even in there. That's where the magic, or maybe the science, happens.
Okay, let's get into it. Flour first.
Absolutely. Flour. It's the structure provider. Segal's recipe, Love and Lemons, they point this out. But the crucial thing, stressed absolutely everywhere, how you measure it.
Not just scooping it out of the bag.
No. Every source hammers this home.
Yeah.
The spoon and level method. Spoon the flour into the cup, level it off. Avoid packing it in.
Why is that so important?
Because packing it adds too much flour. And that's like a guaranteed path to dense, heavy pancakes. Not fluffy.
The spoon and level seems small but foundational.
It really is foundational. And speaking of foundational, the absolute engine driving the fluff in all these recipes, baking powder.
Right, the leavening.
This is the key leavening agent. It reacts, creates bubbles, makes the pancakes light, airy, helps them puff up beautifully on the griddle.
It sounds like Inspired Taste, Adam Gallagher's recipe, is pretty big on the baking powder, calls it the secret.
He does. And suggests a generous amount. He explains it's the reaction with the heat that does the work. He also highlights using fresh, double-acting baking powder. That's important.
Freshness matters.
Yeah, old baking powder won't give you the same lift. And he notes an aluminum-free kind can help avoid a sort of metallic aftertaste. It's a nice detail.
Good tip. Okay, so fresh baking powder is key. What about sugar? It's in there, but doesn't seem like a lot.
Right. Sugar does two things. Adds a touch of sweetness, obviously, but also helps with that nice browning. Segal and Love and Lemons mention this.
Nah, for the color.
Yeah. And Gallagher points out most recipes keep the sugar fairly low because, well, you're probably going to drown them in syrup anyway, right?
Oh, guilty!
So the syrup brings the sweetness. Granulated sugar is pretty standard across these recipes we looked at, though others could work.
And salt, just for flavor.
Not just flavor, though. That's key. It enhances everything, balances the sweetness. Segal, Love, and Lemons, they both include it. Gallagher actually has a practical tip here.
Oh, yeah.
He says if you happen to use salted butter instead of unsalted, maybe cut back slightly on the added salt, just to keep the balance right.
Makes sense. Okay. Eggs. Standard binders, but do they do more here?
They certainly do. Besides binding, eggs add richness. And critically, for our mission of fluffiness, they're essential for that puff and tender texture.
So important for the structure, too.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Segal and Love and Lemons emphasize this. Gallagher interestingly points out that a flax egg can work as a base if you're doing a vegan version. Shows the principle holds, even with swaps.
Interesting. And milk. Can you use, like, any liquid? Water?
Well, milk is standard, adds necessary moisture, helps create that smoothish batter. Segal and Love and Lemons talk about this, and while dairy milk is classic.
Can you use non-dairy?
Yep. Sources like Gallagher and Love and Lemons confirm that non-dairy alternatives, think oat, almond, coconut milk, from the carton they work just fine.
Okay.
Now, here's an interesting bit of nuance we found. Love and Lemons specifically says not to use buttermilk in their recipe. the one relying on baking powder.
Oh, why the strong no on buttermilk there? Isn't buttermilk supposed to make things tender?
It can, but it connects back to the leavening agent. Gallagher actually explains this angle.
Right.
Buttermilk is acidic, right? So if you didn't have baking powder, you could use buttermilk with baking soda. The acid reacts with the soda for lift, but these recipes use baking powder.
Which doesn't need acid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Baking powder is designed to work with neutral liquids, like regular milk. Adding acidic buttermilk could actually mess with the chemical reaction they've balanced for this recipe, potentially affecting the texture. It's about matching your liquid to your leavener.
Ah, I see. So for these specific recipes, stick to regular milk or a non-dairy equivalent. Got it. And finally, melted butter.
Melted butter.
Eh.
Key for richness, lovely flavor, and it helps with that golden crust. All the recipes include it.
Unsalted or salted?
Sources say either works, just adjust the added salt like we mentioned.
Yeah.
And Gallagher and Lemons both suggest oil or vegan butter as dairy-free swaps. So it's versatile.
Okay, ingredients covered. Now mixing, this seems like another really critical moment.
Absolutely vital. And the process is pretty consistent across the board. Whisk your dry stuff, flour, sugar, salt, baking powder in one bowl. Then whisk your wet ingredients. Eggs, milk, that melted butter, maybe vanilla if you're using it in another separate bowl.
And then combine, the moment of truth for texture, right?
Exactly. You pour the wet into the dry and mix.
Yeah.
Here's the key. Just until they are moistened, barely combined.
Not smooth.
No, the universal warning, like screamed from the recipe pages by everyone, is do not overmix.
Why not? What happens?
Segal specifically warns about this. Overmixing develops the gluten in the flour way too much, and that leads to tough, rubbery pancakes, not the fluffy ones we want.
So resist that urge to get it perfectly smooth. Lumps are okay.
Absolutely resist. Lumps are more than okay. They're expected. All sources agree. Gallagher and Love and Lemons explicitly say a few lumps are fine. The batter will be on the thick side.
What if it seems too thick? Like paste?
Yeah, if it seems excessive, Segal and Love and Lemons suggest adding just a tiny splash more milk, like a tablespoon at a time. Go slow. Don't suddenly make it thin.
Okay. And Gallagher mentioned something about the batter resting. Bubbles.
He did. A neat observation. He says if you let the batter sit for just a moment after mixing, you might start seeing small bubbles forming on the surface.
What's that?
That's just the baking powder starting to activate. It's a little visual cue that your leavener is alive and kicking, ready to do its job on the heat.
Cool. Okay, batter made. Lumpy perfection achieved. Time to cook them up for that puffin color.
Right. Getting the pan set up is crucial. Everyone agrees. Heat a griddle or a good nonstick skillet over medium heat to start.
Just medium, not high.
Medium.
Mm.
Love and Lemons adds a smart tip, though. As the pan really heats up over time, especially if you're doing multiple batches, consider turning the heat down slightly, maybe to medium-low.
Ah, to prevent burning.
Exactly. So the outside doesn't burn before the inside cooks through.
And prepping the pan surface. Oil, butter, both.
You just need a light coating.
Yeah.
Segal uses a combo of vegetable oil and then swirls in a little butter. Gallagher prefers butter, says it gives extra crispy edges, but notes it's less essential if your nonstick pan is really good.
And Love and Lemons.
They just say brush lightly with either butter or oil. The goal is just enough fat to prevent sticking and help get that nice golden brown color, not swimming in it.
Got it. Okay, pan's hot, lightly greased. Batter time. How much per pancake?
It seems to be around a quarter cup, maybe a third. Segal and Gallagher lean towards 14 cup per pancake. Love and Lemons go slightly bigger, maybe 13 cup.
Do they spread out on their own?
Mostly, but Gallagher mentions you can nudge the batter gently with your spoon or the bottom of the measuring cup if you want them a bit wider or thinner than they naturally puff.
Okay. Now, the big moment. The flip. How do you know when?
This is where the sources are incredibly consistent. They give very clear visual cues, like a checklist.
Okay, what are they?
First, you'll see bubbles forming all over the surface. Watch for them to start popping and stay open. That's key.
Bubbles popping. Got it.
Second, look at the edges of the pancake. They should start to look dry and set, not wet and shiny like the middle.
Dry edges. Check.
And finally, the classic test. Gently lift one edge with your spatula. The underside should be a beautiful golden brown.
So, bubbles popping, dry edges, golden bottom. That's the signal.
That's your trifecta. Time to flip.
How long on site, too?
Much quicker. Segal and Gallagher both point this out. You're really just cooking until that second side is also golden brown and the pancake feels cooked through. Love and Lemons says that.
How quick is quick?
Segal suggests peaking after maybe 30 seconds on side 2. It doesn't take long at all.
Good to know. And if you're cooking a big stack for a crowd?
Yeah.
Tips.
Yeah, two good ones came up. Segal recommends wiping the pan clean with paper towels between batches, gets rid of any burnt butter bits, helps the next ones cook evenly and look nice.
Smart. Keeps them from getting spotty.
Right. And Love and Lemons has the classic warming tip. Put finished pancakes in a single layer on a baking sheet in a low oven, like 200 Fahrenheit, maybe tended loosely with foil to keep them warm without getting soggy.
Perfect. Good, beautiful stack achieved. But maybe we want to customize. Add-ins are huge for pancakes.
Oh, absolutely. And the sources have suggestions. Classic stuff. Chocolate chips, fresh or even frozen blueberries. Segal and Gallagher both mention those.
Blueberries.
Gallagher gets a bit more creative too, suggesting things like chopped nuts or even cooked, crumbled bacon folded into the batter.
Bacon pancakes. Okay. How much add-in?
The general guideline seems to be about a quarter cup to a half cup
Yeah.
of whatever you choose. Fold it in gently right at the end, just before cooking. Don't over mix it in.
Right. Protect the fluffiness. And these base recipes seem pretty adaptable beyond just add-ins.
Definitely. They really highlight the versatility. Segal mentions using her base recipe as a starting point for, say, banana pancakes or pumpkin pancakes.
Oh, nice.
Gallagher talks about using this core method, but swapping flours, whole wheat, spelt, gluten-free blends, trying different sugars, even adapting it for that flax egg vegan base we talked about.
And Love and Lemons.
Love and Lemons links out to related recipes on their site, like oatmeal pancakes or fully vegan pancake recipes, showing that understanding this basic baking powder method gives you a foundation that works across different styles.
So master this simple base, and a whole world of pancake variations opens up.
Precisely. It's not just about one recipe. It's about understanding the core techniques.
Okay, and once they're cooked, the recommendation is pretty universal, right? Eat them hot.
Yes. Segal really emphasizes enjoying them right away. That's when you get that perfect contrast. Crispy edges, soft, fluffy inside. It fades as they sit.
And the classic topping combo.
Universally agreed. A pat of butter melting on top, generous drizzle of real maple syrup. Can't beat it.
But surely there are other options.
Oh, for sure. Gallagher and Love and Lemons suggest fresh fruit alongside. Gallagher also throws out ideas like fruit compote, strawberry, blueberry, or even peanut butter, almond butter.
Whipped cream.
Whipped cream too, absolutely. Get indulgent.
Okay, but what if, miracle of miracles, you have leftovers? Made too many.
Good news on that front. All the sources agree.
Yeah.
Pancakes freeze beautifully, like surprisingly well.
Really? How do you do it right?
Key is letting them cool completely first. Don't stack hot pancakes. Then stack them up, but put a little square of parchment paper or wax paper between each one.
Ah, so they don't stick together into one giant pancake brick.
Exactly. Prevent sticking. Then wrap the whole stack tightly in foil, or even better, put them in a heavy-duty freezer bag and squeeze the air out.
And how long do they last in the freezer?
There's slight variation. Gallagher suggests up to 2 months. Segal and Love and Lemons are a bit more optimistic, saying maybe up to 3 months. Plenty of time, really.
What about just the fridge for a few days?
Gallagher says they'll keep fine in the fridge for up to about a week. Same storage, maybe in an airtight container.
Okay. And reheating. Is there a best way? Oven? Microwave?
This is one area with a little difference between the sources, mostly in oven temps. They all agree the oven is great for reheating several at once and keeping some texture.
What temps did they suggest?
Segal suggests 375 Fahrenheit for 8–10 minutes, maybe on a foil-lined sheet. Gallagher goes a bit lower, 350 Fahrenheit for about 10 minutes, but wrapped in foil. Love and Lemons suggests even lower, just 200 Fahrenheit, maybe to gently warm through.
Interesting range. And the microwave?
Microwave is definitely the quick option if you're just doing 1 or 2. Gallagher suggests about 20 seconds per pancake. Love and Lemons, maybe 30 seconds. You lose the crispy edge, though. It'll be soft.
So it depends on your priority. Speed versus texture.
Exactly. Choose your reheating adventure.
Okay, let's pull back then. Let's synthesize the absolute core wisdom from this deep dive based on all these expert sources. What are the must-knows for easy, fluffy pancakes?
Well, our dive really reveals it boils down to just a few critical things, consistently validated across all the recipes we looked at. First, measure your flour correctly.
Yeah.
Spoon and level. Non-negotiable for structure without density.
Got it, no packing.
Second, understand baking powder is your friend for lift. Use it fresh. That's what makes them puff.
Fresh baking powder. Check.
Third, and maybe the biggest takeaway, the mixing. Combine wet and dry just until moistened. Embrace the lumps. Overmixing is the absolute enemy of fluffiness. Seriously, don't do it.
Less is more with the mixing.
Way more. And finally, learn those visual cues on the griddle. The bubbles popping, the dry edges, the golden brown bottom. Trust your eyes. It takes the guesswork out of flipping.
It's fascinating, isn't it, that even with, slight differences in maybe butter amounts or those varying reheat temps across these really popular, successful recipes, these core principles are identical.
Completely consistent. It really shows that the science of a good basic pancake is pretty universal.
Yeah.
And it's encouraging, too, when you look through the comments on these recipe sites. You see tons of home cooks confirming, yep, this method works. They share their own little tweaks, adding vanilla, maybe some cinnamon, trying different flours successfully.
So people are riffing on this base.
Exactly. Or sometimes troubleshooting, like mine seemed a bit thick, added a splash more milk. Perfect.
Yeah.
It just validates that these principles give you a really solid, reliable foundation to work from at home.
So what we've really learned here is that you don't actually need some secret family heirloom recipe or even a box mix to make truly amazing, fluffy pancakes.
Yep.
It really just comes down to understanding these few simple principles we extracted from the sources. Handle your flour right, mix that batter gently, and watch for those signs on the griddle.
It really demystifies the whole thing, doesn't it? Takes something that can sometimes feel, I don't know, finicky, and makes it consistently achievable and delicious.
Absolutely. So here's maybe a final thought for you to chew on as you try these techniques yourself. We noted those subtle variations, right? A bit more butter here, a different reheat temp there.
Mhm.
Considering your own preferences, maybe you like really crispy edges or a slightly richer flavor, or maybe just how your specific stove or pan heats up. How might your own experiments lead you to slightly favor one variation of these simple shared techniques over another to find your ultimate perfect pancake?
Something to experiment with. Happy flipping.